In addition to that, the science fiction images of the time were very, very potent. I mean, if one thinks of Dan Dare and the Mekong travelling around on these apparently magic machines that floated across the ground.
From 1950 to 51, there was an increase of 50% in road traffic in Italy. Of that, 80% were scooters. Underpinning the Vespa and Lambretta success as aesthetic objects was the fact that they were two solid products made by two essentially modern companies. Piaggio and Innocenti were not typical of the indigenous motorcycle industry. Up until then, manufacturers offered small production runs of hand-built machines. Piaggio and Innocenti brought big business to Italian two-wheeler production. Both were familiar with conveyor belt mass production techniques. They installed up-to-the-minute equipment. Right from the start, they had volume production and relatively low costs. Their products were totally unlike motorcycles of the day and carried none of the negative associations.
Most people who've been used to using motorbikes, I mean, both 50 years ago and now, are used to having them leak, explode, and drip all over them, and generally they're incontinent machines. But of course the Italians are a vain and self-regarding people who are quite properly so, and such a device would not be popular amongst people who like to have creases in their trousers and like to wear silk even when they go to work. And of course the Vespa's leg guards. These are things too which speak about the Italian vanity and pride of appearance. Not only is the all-enclosing bodywork paid tribute to aerodynamic science, it also makes considerable concessions to personal style and vanity, and that you can ride a Vespa and not end up with oil stains all over your bottom.
Motorcyclists of the time relished the prospect of doing the necessary weekly maintenance and repairs. Scooterists, on the other hand, were not expected to endure the same incessant tinkering as addicted enthusiasts.
The motor scooter was a complete product. It wasn't a proprietary engine lashed to the rear wheel by a chain. It was designed from the scratch so that, in the case, for example, of the Lambretta, the compact quality of the entire design was the first thing that you spotted. And I think that's what distinguished it from all other motorcycles. This made it very attractive to people who really had no interest whatsoever in motorcycling. They went out, they bought something which was more akin to a car.
The Vespa and Lambretta ended up looking virtually identical, but their origins were quite different. Piaggio's expertise was in pressed steel construction. The Vespa's body is made from pressed steel sections welded together to form one stress-bearing shell, a monocoque. All other components are bolted to it. The Vespa is a snail, an invertebrate. The Lambretta, however, has a spine. Innocenti's background in steel tubing manufacture meant that Lambretta evolved with a central load-bearing tube to which were attached footboards, leg shields, and engine. The Vespa had an elegantly designed engine. The motor and gearbox sat side by side, the whole thing cooled by a fan. This compact unit was connected directly to the rear wheel and moved up and down as part of the suspension system. While the Lambretta was no less unique, it went through a number of design changes before settling on a combined engine and rear wheel unit with chain drive. Both companies tried to outpace each other by bringing more and more powerful models. Soon, the 35-mile-per-hour scooter could do over 70. Lambretta won the power battle, but they had to concede to the popularity of the enclosed look. They stopped producing open models in 1958. The macho motorcycling diehards were appalled by scooters. They claimed the engine over the back wheel made the machines unstable. But the scooter had always been maligned. Even before the war, there had been a few basic designs for scooters, all low-powered and mostly aimed at women. They were seen as an adjunct to mainstream machines. The bigotry persisted. In Britain, dyed-in-the-wool motorcycle dealers refused to stock the Lambretta and Vespa.
I have this uncle works in my dad's motorbike shop. He just won't touch scooters. He'd resigned before he mended one. Scooters are decadent or something.
Capris made for the family outing.
Motorcycle manufacturers were forced to take the threat seriously as scooter sales rocketed, boosted by another new fad, hire purchase.
£9.10 for your first down payment, small instalment.
Belatedly, other manufacturers got in on the act. Largely, it was a disaster story.
They were exactly what scooters shouldn't have been. They were proprietary engines, largely proprietary engines, lashed by chain to the rear wheel. And what the bodywork did was hid this terrible mess.
Its British imitators didn't truly understand what the machine was meant to be about, and they were just trying to ape something which they hadn't really got with, and therein lies the fault.
By the early 50s, the Italian-style machine was rolling on a wave of modernism throughout Europe. The streamlined jet set were going places. In the process of mobilizing Italy, the Vespa and the Lambretta had mobilized the youth of the world. This was no accident. Scootering was engineered to be more than a form of transportation. The scooter was conceived as a major social appliance. It became a popular pastime. The manufacturers pushed this hard, encouraging scooterists to join their clubs. The Lambretta Club of Great Britain pulled out its own magazine, The Jet Set. Rallies, runs, games, and even beauty contests were staged, all extending the glamorous image purveyed in scooter advertising.
Well, I think we associate the Vespa so much with, Marcello Mastroianni lookalikes and blasting down the coast road in Amalfi and glamorous women in tight sweaters and tight skirts. You want to suggest what Italy was like in 1956? You take a photograph of a gleaming silver Vespa. I mean, it is just as evocative as a glass of martini or a baby Fiat. This machine actually came to summarize Italy.
The two rivals presented their machines in very similar ways. Around them, they wrapped images which were the antithesis of wartime life.
Vespa.
Inventiamo qualcosa che vi faccia strabiliare, un cocktail fatto di genialità, di dinamismo, di eleganza, di potenza, tutto quello che può darvi la felicità. Prendiamo due ruote e le mettiamo qua, un bel motore che veloce va, poi ci mettiamo un bel fanale ed un clacson dalla voce originale che ti fa. In ogni strada suonerà, scooter linea, nuova linea porterà. Freno a disco, novità. Mischiamo bene tutto quanto ed ecco qua, il motoscooter di gran qualità, con sicurezza e con velocità. In capo al mondo in un festoso giro tondo, la Lambretta in allegria vi porterà.
E dopo la Lambretta che inventiamo?
Inventiamo il Lambret Twist! Lambret Twist!
In gonnellino balli Lambret Twist.
The two rivals presented their machines in very similar ways. Around them, they wrapped images which were the antithesis of wartime life. Freedom, love, burgeoning youth, sex, fun. Scooters for the young and the young at heart.
Contrabbassista tutti insieme fanno il Lambret Twist. In riva al mare con il Lambret Twist. A lavorare con il Lambret Twist. Anche all'altare con la sposa puoi andare. Questo è l'anno in cui trionfa il Lambret Twist.
The carefree, idealized advertising image of the scooter distanced it even further from the old macho motorcycle. Its simple, clean usability was designed to pull in a whole new group of consumers, women.